An interesting flaw in my personality that has curiously led to me having difficulties finding good regular employment is that I'm too quick and efficient. Now, I know this sounds a bit weird. It sounds like something you say at a job interview when they ask you what your flaws are and you say I'm a bit of a perfectionist. You know, that kind of quasi bullshit thing you do in job interviews to make positives into negatives or negatives into positives, whichever way round it is. But no, I've had quite solid experience throughout my life where my speed and efficiency has really negatively impacted my career. It's a real thing. At school, for example, I was, for maths, not necessarily all the subjects, but for maths, I was in the top echelon at primary school. And I don't mean I was the top, I wasn't the brainiest kid. I was probably about, I don't know, probably about fifth out of 30 people, you know. I suppose I sort of cursed with the nearlies in that I wasn't able to, you know, get to the top, and I was never number one, never star pupil, but always just running just outside of the medals, you know, fourth and fifth. You know, if an Olympian spent their whole life just getting fourths and fifths, they probably felt quite proud about it, but, you know, they'd never get any news reports about them or anything, all that kind of thing. And when we then changed to secondary school, because secondary school didn't really know how all the different primary schools had been progressing their kids, they kind of started everybody off at a flat basis for the first couple of years, and you were retreading ground that you might have already retread in primary school. So for the first couple of years of secondary school, I was well ahead of the curve. Most math lessons were a matter of done it, done it, done it, done it, and then you've got half the lesson left where you then become a disruptive element because you just start chatting and making jokes and, you know, essentially behaving in the same way that people who had already given up because they're too thick start behaving. It's exactly the same process. They've given up because they can't do it, so they start disrupting. Whereas all of us who were already advanced to the stage they were teaching us were now acting up and disrupting because we'd finished too early. And of course this meant that me being quick and efficient meant that I kept getting told off a lot. You know, shut up, stop chatting, blah blah blah. As everybody caught up and things started advancing, I soon resumed my position of being like fourth or fifth, and I couldn't keep up with the super brains because now you've got all these different primary schools merging into a secondary school. It's like all the brainiest kids of all those schools are now there as well. So now in our year, there's not 30 people anymore, it's like, it might have been about 180. So there would have been 6 other primary schools all going in there. So if you just do the maths, nice quickly and efficiently do the maths, that means if I was 4th or 5th in all of these schools, that means there's now about 30 kids that are brainier than me. You know, I'm not using this video to say how big my brain is, because unfortunately it's not quite big enough to be a super brain, which is probably quite evident from these videos, but there you go. And so my disruptiveness then reduced again a bit. But then when I went into the workplace, when I finished university, I went into the workplace, I started out as a temp. A common experience for a lot of graduates nowadays, because I did start my university at the point in time when, you know, the government was encouraging every man jack to go to university. And there was a massive oversupply of graduates, so my degree didn't really count for much in the workplace. It was quite a bottom of the barrel university, you know. Anyway, what I was temping at was sort of like office jobs, because I couldn't find a permanent office job, so I was just doing temporary work until I found a permanent job. And very often it'd be sort of like minor ledger work or sort of administration, all that kind of thing. And I was just very efficient at it. But at the same time, all the companies were just getting this mindset that the ideal work environment should be an open plan office. And so I had this perfect storm of me being too efficient with my paperwork and getting it all done by halfway through my working day, and then having like 3 or 4 hours of not really doing anything, so I'm just chatting and being a bit disruptive again, you know, and then getting told off again. I'm going back to that. I'm going back to the first couple of years of secondary school all over again. And at one company, as a sort of example of how this can go extremely badly, is that, you know, I was just sitting there, I'd done all my work, and I was quite proud of the fact that I completed all my work, because I'm assuming that businesses like you to be quick and efficient, and that's something that businesses are always moaning about. You know, they want to improve efficiency and quickness and all that kind of thing. And I'd finished all my work, and, you know, I'd said to my boss, well, I've done all that, you got anything else for me? Or, you know, and they go, well, no, we haven't. You know, for the rest of your shift, you're going to have to go and work in the warehouse. And it's like, oh, well, I didn't come here to work in the warehouse. You know, I'm working in the warehouse isn't my career goal. It's not really something that I'm, you know, built for, as it were. You know, I find repetitive tasks on a production line to be quite mind-numbing. Whenever I've done them, I've ended up quitting after a couple of days because my brain just melts at the boredom. And, you know, a bit like that film that Charlie Chaplin made in the 30s when he goes onto a production line. Anyway, so, you know, I said to the, you know, I'd rather not, if you don't mind. You know, can't I just go home instead? You know, I don't mind not earning the bit of money I'm going to miss out on, but if it's going to be a choice of either working on a production line or nothing, then, you know, I'll choose nothing. And they got really angry about it, and they said, well, just fuck off then, you know, get out of here. And off I went, and that was the end of that particular contract. Not really a great way of getting references, is it? And yeah, it's like you watch these programs and all these business moguls will go on and on and on about improving efficiency and all this kind of thing. But the reality is that most workplaces are forced into the opposite. If you want any kind of job in administration in an open plan office, then you don't want somebody who's quick and efficient. That's the exact opposite of what you want. The only people that survive in those positions are people that have this wonderful ability to be a non-stop snail. You just have to slowly lift the folder of things to do today and put it down next to them, and then open it up, and then look at the bit of paper and read it for 10 minutes, and then put it down, and then reach for their mouse and spend another 10 minutes figuring out which tab they need to open. So it looks like they're always working, and it always looks like they're overloaded. And you know, you get it down to this sort of perfect way to make the amount of work you have to do just slightly, not quite, or just fill up the time of your day. That's the skill. The skill isn't actually doing the job efficiently, because doing the job quickly and efficiently just lands you in trouble. Because the one thing you're not allowed to do in the workplace is just sit there and chat and make coffees, because that's not a good use of time. If the boss comes round, why is that person not doing anything? Oh, they're too efficient. Oh, good, well done for being efficient. Here's some more work for you. You do some other work. You know, there's the reward for being quick and efficient is negative, whereas the reward for being slightly incompetent and slow is more rewarding by definition. So anyway, after about 3 or 4 years of this, I endeavoured to find a different career where this kind of impossible scenario of trying to reduce my speed and efficiency was the only way I could survive. So I just found a different job where these factors didn't come into play. But I find it quite irritating because I do enjoy, you know, basic bureaucracy. It's something I am good and efficient at. But there's nowhere in the workplace for me to do that, especially with open plan offices. In the good old days, the good old days of inefficiency, I could have just been stuck in my own office to my own devices. And when I'd finished the work for the day, I could just sit there and play a computer game or chat on social media or whatever. But you can't do that in open plan offices. And the whole point of open plan offices is they're supposed to make everything more efficient. But all they do is remove all the efficient people, because the efficient people have done their work before the day's end, which you're not allowed to do.